Welcome to the Overview of Lighting System and Controls webinar. It's currently 2 p.m., so let's get started. My name is Portia Baldad, and I'm the Marketing Manager for the Enerva and Summerhill team. Enerva and Summerhill are supporting Emission Reduction Alberta with the design and execution of the Energy Savings for Business program. Thank you for joining us. Before we get started, let's go over a few housekeeping items. We have quite a few people attending today's webinar. As such, all microphones have been muted to avoid interruptions. Throughout the presentation, you can submit questions to our team through the control panel's question section. We will answer those questions during a Q&A period at the end of the webinar. If you are having technical difficulties, please email Amanda at info@eralberta.ca and we'll do our best to help. If you can't resolve your technical issues or need to leave early, we'll be posting a recording of this webinar on the ESB Program website. It'll include both the presentation and the Q&A session. Today, we'll begin with a brief program overview, including eligible measures categories. Then, we'll go over the eligible technologies, specific rules, and application forms for lighting systems and controls. We'll then end the presentation with a Q&A period. Today, Luca Youngin, Emission Reduction Alberta's Program Manager, will provide a little background on ERA and the Energy Savings for Business program. Then my colleagues Patrick McMahon and Surya Narcia will jump in to guide us through eligible lighting systems and control measures. Now, let's get right to it. Here's Luca to kick off today's presentation.
Thanks, Portia. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Reducing greenhouse gas emissions while supporting the economy benefits everyone. ERA's vision is anchored in the belief that our success is measured in both economic and environmental terms. Emissions Reduction Alberta has been investing in Alberta technologies and companies since 2009 to reduce emissions and grow Alberta's economy. Our investments help innovators develop and demonstrate GHG reducing technologies that lower costs, improve competitiveness, and accelerate Alberta's transformation towards decarbonization. We have worked across many sectors and have recently broadened our scope with the Energy Savings for Business program. This program will accelerate the adoption of commercially available technologies that will help businesses cut costs and reduce emissions. Learning from previous programs with similar scope, we have adapted the program to be more streamlined. We know time is money to Alberta businesses and are committed to fast turnaround times. For standard applications, this could be as quick as 2 days. The program has been designed to reflect the realities of the pandemic. Incentive payments will be made electronically, and all program materials are available in digital, downloadable format that can be easily printed by contractors or participants. We have also expanded the measures list to include categories that have not been previously offered, such as geothermal and compressed air. We have also made sure to include measures that are accessible to all businesses, like ceiling and wall insulation, refrigerated case covers, efficient motors, lighting systems, and high-efficiency windows. We'll have over 300 measures to offer in this program. Commercial and industrial spaces can benefit from effective lighting systems and controls. Lighting can be a source of significant energy consumption, especially as needs vary from space to space. When used in expertly designed infrastructure, lighting systems and controls can reduce utility costs and cut down on maintenance. We will continue to host more events like this one to help guide contractors and applicants through the program. If you missed any of the past webinars, we will post them on the website. To register for future webinars or view recordings of past webinars, please visit eralberta.ca/ESB. Before we get into the details of the Lighting Systems and Controls webinar, we wanted to share a quick note about the application process. We are seeing incomplete applications submitted in order to secure funding reservations. Submitting an incomplete application does not secure funding. If a pre-project application is submitted but is not approved, it does not hold a place in line for the incentive reservation. The incentive is only reserved after the pre-project application is approved. It is important to submit good quality applications with complete documentation, or the review cannot occur in a timely manner. If the application is incomplete or is missing key information, it creates delays in the review and approval process, as it will be returned to you for more information. With that said, we're glad you could join us today. I will now pass it off to Patrick and Surya to take you through how to apply for this category of incentives.
Thanks for the introduction, Luca, and sharing some insights on the importance of complete pre-approval applications for all program stakeholders. I know the review team appreciates it. I'm Patrick, the Contractor Support Manager with the Nerva Summerhill Delivery Team. Thanks for your participation in today's webinar. Let's get right into it, lighting systems and controls. It might be worth highlighting proactively that these measure categories exclusively include fixtures and lighting control systems. Bulbs or lamps in and of themselves are not considered eligible measures for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that many of these products are now considered cost competitive compared to less efficient alternatives and do not require support from programs such as this. The focus in energy savings for business is to support other lighting system measures lower on the market adoption spectrum. With that being said, let's discuss what measures are eligible within the lighting system category. They are listed in the measures list as posted on the Energy Savings for Business website. Measures eligible for incentive include troffer LED lighting fixtures, downlighting or integral LED lighting fixtures, exterior LED lighting fixtures including accent or tracking LED lighting fixtures, linear LED lighting fixtures, bay LED lighting fixtures. Please note that retrofit kits for these measures are eligible. Additionally, LED exit signs and refrigerated case LED lighting fixtures are eligible measures. However, for these measures, retrofit kits are not eligible for incentive. As we move toward a review of the application process, Surya, could you share some of the key specific eligibility criteria participants and contractors should be aware of with respect to lighting fixtures and systems?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So lighting projects are only eligible in existing buildings. New construction projects are not eligible. Specification sheets are required for all lighting fixtures. And for lighting systems, the incentives are capped at 25% of the cost, of the total project costs. One very important thing to note is that there is a minimum project incentive of $1,000 in order to qualify for the program. Some of the measures require Energy Star or DLC certification. We will discuss that on the next slide. So here we go. Please note that 2 of the fixture types need to be on Energy Star list to qualify, while 5 require DLC certification as per that table. So for these measures, the Energy Star or DLC certification is mandatory. Additionally, during the review process, the product will be compared to make sure it is from the correct category in the Energy Star or DLC list. For example, if a project has exterior LED fixtures, it will need to have a DLC product ID and belong to the DLC category for outdoor luminaries and outdoor retrofit kits. I will also draw your attention to one criterion which was mentioned in the eligible measures list that was posted on the website. You will see that it says that LED exit signs require Energy Star. Actually, they don't. They don't need Energy Star certification. It was actually a typo, and we will update this document over the next few days.
Thanks, Surya. Let's take a tour through the application process for a lighting system. This run-through starts at the Add Measure button that's been clicked through the Measure and Project Summary stage of an application. This is available to the participant or their contractor if they've been granted access by the participant earlier in the application process. The user adding the measure will select lighting as the measure category for lighting fixtures. The measure type will be the type of fixture being added. Then the user will choose from a list based on the specific measures planned for installation as described in the measure and minimum eligibility column from within the measures list. Lighting fixture applications require the quantity for each measure that matches the specific criteria. If various similar fixtures will be part of the project, they will need to be added as separate measures. Expect pre-approval applications to be declined if similar measures are grouped together. The specification sheet for the lighting fixture planned for installation will need to be added to the application by dragging the document into the gray area or clicking for a prompt to explore and find the file to upload. The requirements that follow may vary slightly to reflect the expected use case for particular fixtures. but this example of a bay LED fixture is indicative. The application requires a description of the building type where the fixture will be installed, then the wattage of the fixture being replaced, followed by a drop-down to identify the type of lighting technology being replaced. The estimated hours of operation of the fixture is required. There are fields for various measures that reflect the requirement of identifying a DLC ID or an Energy Star ID, and in the case of a DLC, to identify the category the fixture belongs to according to their records. Where lumens are requested through the measure definition, this relates to the new fixture, and the info helper will remind you the user completing the application of this. The assumed emissions reduction per measure is populated, and the final inputs of the measure inclusion relate to cost, the equipment and material cost, labor cost, and design cost. With all of that information added, click the prompt for Get Calculation, and this will flag any overlooked field and populate attributes that had been previously indicated as calculated value. Some of the values that have been updated will relate to the incentive. For your awareness, the incentive per unit will reflect the per measure incentive identified on the measures list. The measure incentive reflects the number of measures multiplied by the incentive per unit. The maximum eligible measure incentive is calculated based on the 25% incentive cap relative to total eligible project costs. This is the maximum percentage of eligible expenses for lighting fixtures. The total eligible measure incentive is the lower of the measure incentive and the maximum eligible measure incentive, and it reflects the value of the incentive being applied for in the project application, attributable to this specific measure. With a full review of the measure for completeness, click Add Measure to add it to the project and be returned to the measure and project summary of the application. The other measure category we'd like to showcase today is the lighting control measure category. Specific measures within this category include daylight controls, occupancy controls, and exterior lighting bi-level controls. They can be reviewed in the measures list that's available on the program website, which is at eralberta.ca/ESB. Surya, can you once again share some of the eligibility criteria participants and contractors should be aware of when planning a project with lighting controls and that might be thinking about when they're thinking toward their application submission?
Absolutely. So here also, projects must be carried out on existing buildings only. New construction is not eligible. Specification sheets are required for all the lighting for all the controls, all the controls systems. Controls with automatic off feature are not eligible. And there are some specific controls that have wattage control requirements. We suggest to review these them in the eligible measures list for more details. And in this case, for lighting control systems, the incentives are capped at 50% of the project cost.
Thanks again, Surya. Let's take another look at the process to add a measure to a project, this time an example of a lighting control measure. This process again starts after the Add Measure button has been clicked in the measure and project summary stage of an application. This is again available to the participant or their contractor if they've been granted access by the participant earlier in the application process. The user adding the measure will in this case select lighting controls as the measure category. The measure type will be the type of control being added, and that will contextualize the list to select the specific measure as described in the measures and minimum eligibility column from within the measures list. As is the case for other measures, the first required question is the quantity of the same measure planned for installation. Where different measures are part of the same project, they will need to be added separately, and we'll talk in a moment about how to allocate project costs across a number of different measures within the same project. The spec sheet of the control will need to be added by dragging the file into the gray area on the screen or clicking to prompt the opportunity to find the appropriate file and upload it. There's a field for a description of the type of building where the control is being installed and an estimate for the number of hours the light to be controlled is in use. Since controls are eligible to be added to existing uncontrolled lighting systems, the user will need to identify if the application is for a control being replaced. Yes, the control is being replaced. No, it's a new control. The assumed per unit emissions reduction is pre-populated, and the final inputs for the measure inclusion relate to cost, equipment and material cost, labor cost, and design cost. With all of this information, click the prompt for Get Calculation, which will flag any missing field and populate the fields that had previously indicated calculated value. At this point, you will see that values relating to the incentive have been calculated. Like the previous example, the incentive per unit will reflect the per measure incentive identified in the measures list. The measure incentive reflects the number of measures multiplied by the incentive per unit. The maximum eligible measure incentive is calculated based on the 50% incentive cap relative to total eligible project cost, which is the maximum percentage of eligible expenses for lighting controls. The total eligible measure incentive is the lower of the measure incentive and the maximum eligible measure incentive, and the total reflects the value of the incentive being applied for with this measure inside of the project application. With a full review of the measure to be added to the application, click Add Measure if it is complete in reflecting this aspect of the project. Let's work through an example to understand cost allocation across multiple measures included in a single application. This will be especially valuable in the case of lighting projects. Let's imagine an office building carrying out a lighting retrofit with multiple measures. This project includes troffer fixtures for the main floors, bay fixtures for the lobby, and exit signs for the stairwells. You can see example costs for this project on the screen, including the equipment costs, labor costs, and design costs of the project. You can also see the potential incentive for each eligible measure. In this case, the incentive is $20 per troffer fixture, $50 per bay fixture, and $12 per LED exit sign. Note that with an incentive limit of 25% of the eligible project costs, the bay fixture incentive would be limited to 25% of the $11,000 expense, or an incentive of $2,750. This would be less than the $3,000 measure incentive calculated by multiplying the incentive per unit by the quantity of bay fixtures. This should demonstrate the value in considering how project costs should be allocated across all measures included in the project application. For the benefit of the participant, a fair allocation of the labor cost and design cost should be applied to each measure in the application. In this example, the labor and design costs are split into thirds, and as a result of fairly distributing the cost, the participant is eligible for the maximum incentive for each individual measure included in the project application. To support prompt review of the pre-approval application, it is recommended, but not required, to provide a summary breakdown identifying how eligible costs are or were allocated across the measures included in the project application. Complete applications lead to prompt approvals, and helping the review team understand how you've approached the application, especially in this context, can help everyone get to project execution faster.